Are you worried about how presidential power could change your life? Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. The air outside the Supreme Court crackles with anticipation. It's early morning, but already the marble steps are crowded. Reporters setting up cameras, protesters chanting, and ordinary Americans clutching coffee cups, their faces tense with worry and hope. Across the plaza, voices rise in a chorus of dissent and support. Signs wave above a sea of faces, importers, business owners, union workers, farmers, and families, all gathered for a decision that could reshape the nation's future. Inside, the Supreme Court prepares for a historic showdown over presidential power. This isn't just about tariffs or trade, it's about the very limits of executive authority in America. The case, VOS Selections Inc. v. Trump, has become a lightning rod for debate. The central question: how much power should one person have in a democracy built on checks and balances? The stakes are enormous. On one side, the president claims he's defending American interests and jobs, wielding emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs. On the other, business leaders and legal experts warn of dangerous overreach, of a precedent that could tip the balance of power for generations. For some, the president is a champion for American workers, standing up to foreign competition and reviving struggling industries. For others, his actions threaten livelihoods and stability, pushing small businesses and families to the brink. In port cities and rural farmlands, anxiety runs high. Rising costs, uncertain futures, and a sense that the rules of the game are changing overnight. This isn't an abstract debate, it's a matter of survival for many. The case has become a flashpoint about the very structure of government. What are the checks on presidential power, especially in times of crisis? Can a trade deficit really be declared a national emergency? The Supreme Court must answer these profound questions. Their decision will ripple through the economy, the Constitution, and the lives of millions. The world is watching. The nation holds its breath, waiting for history to unfold. Are you shocked by how quickly a single decision can ignite a national crisis? Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. April 2, 2025, President Trump, flanked by Vice President Haley and Treasury Secretary Martinez, declares a national emergency, dubbing it Liberation Day. The threat? Not war or disaster, but America's ballooning trade deficit. $1.2 trillion and rising, according to the latest Commerce Department data. Trump invokes the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, a law designed for foreign policy crises, not trade disputes. White House counsel David Lee drafts the executive order overnight. Sweeping tariffs follow, 10% on most imports, up to 50% for countries with the largest surpluses like China, Germany, and Japan. The administration brands it economic shock therapy, with Commerce Secretary Patel insisting it's the only way to force fairer trade. Critics erupt. Business leaders, legal scholars, and members of Congress call it a constitutional overreach, bypassing Congress's authority over trade. The legal justification: that a trade deficit is an unusual and extraordinary threat, a phrase White House lawyers highlight in the IEEPA. This stretches IEEPA's intent further than ever before, legal experts warn, setting off alarms across the legal community. Congress, not the president, is supposed to regulate commerce. Within hours, lawsuits are filed by trade groups, state attorneys general, and civil liberties organizations. The administration doubles down, insisting national security is at stake, with the National Security Advisor warning of economic warfare. The courts must now decide, is this bold leadership or a dangerous abuse of power? The stakes are enormous. The legal battle begins with the nation watching every move. Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. Now let's dive into how this legal battle became a fundamental test of constitutional boundaries. Importers, led by VOS Selections, strike back in court, framing the case as a challenge to presidential power. They argue, a trade deficit isn't an emergency, and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, was never meant to give the president sweeping authority over tariffs. Legal scholars point to the statute's original intent, to address genuine national security threats, not economic policy. The U.S. Court of International Trade agrees, citing the landmark Youngstown Sheet and Tube COV Sawyer case. In that 1952 decision, the Supreme Court limited presidential power, holding that the president cannot act contrary to the will of Congress. The court rules, only Congress can impose broad tariffs. As Professor Jane Smith notes, The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. The decision is a major win for the challengers and a robust defense of the separation of powers, a core principle designed to prevent any one branch from overreaching. The judges warn, letting the President act this way would erase Congress's constitutional role in trade. The Federalist Papers, often cited in such cases, stress the importance of checks and balances to safeguard liberty. The ruling invokes the major questions doctrine, a recent Supreme Court principle requiring clear congressional approval for executive actions with vast economic or political significance. Legal experts say this doctrine is increasingly used to rein in executive overreach. The Liberation Day tariffs are blocked, declared null and void by the court. Businesses across the country breathe a sigh of relief, spared from sudden economic upheaval. But the administration immediately appeals, determined to defend its interpretation of executive power. The legal fight is far from over. Constitutional scholars predict a showdown at the nation's highest court. The case is headed up the judicial ladder, with the Supreme Court poised to weigh in on the limits of presidential power. The stakes. Who really controls America's trade policy? The next chapter in this constitutional drama is about to unfold. Why are there not more people talking about how these court battles could change the future of presidential power? Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. The administration quickly files an appeal to the Federal Circuit, launching a flurry of legal filings and urgent motions. Their top priority, requesting a stay to keep the contested tariffs in place while the case is reviewed. The court, after intense arguments from both sides, grants the stay. Tariffs snap back into effect overnight, leaving businesses reeling from the sudden reversal. Legal uncertainty now clouds the economy. Companies scramble to adapt, unsure whether to pass on costs, renegotiate contracts, or hold off on investments. Behind the scenes, legal teams on both sides work around the clock, preparing for the next phase. Everyone knows the Supreme Court will have the final word. The case is fast-tracked, with oral arguments set for November. The legal maneuvering intensifies as deadlines loom and stakes rise. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled yet, only agreed to hear the case. The legal community and the public brace for a landmark decision. The stay remains in effect, tariffs continue, and confusion reigns across industries. Every new headline brings more questions than answers. Importantly, this case targets only the IEEPA tariffs, not others like those on steel and aluminum. But the outcome could ripple far beyond. Multiple legal battles over tariffs are unfolding nationwide, but this one could set the biggest precedent, reshaping presidential power over trade. The nation waits for clarity, watching every development with growing anxiety. The stakes, the very future of presidential power over trade, and the balance between Congress and the White House. The world watches as the drama nears its climax, aware that the outcome could reshape global trade. The Supreme Court's decision will echo for years, its impact felt far beyond the courtroom. You need to hear this if you're a business owner or consumer, because the Supreme Court showdown over tariffs is shaking the entire economy. Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. For businesses, this legal war is chaos. Every time tariffs change, our entire supply chain is thrown into disarray, says Linda Chen, CEO of a major electronics importer. Imagine importing goods. Tariffs rise, fall, then rise again. We can't lock in prices or delivery dates, explains a logistics manager. How do you plan? Companies face soaring costs, uncertain contracts, and anxious workers. We had to renegotiate every contract this year, shares a CFO from a Midwest manufacturer. Some absorb losses, others raise prices, hitting consumers. We don't want to pass costs to customers, but we have no choice, admits a grocery store owner. Supply chains are scrambled, shifting to avoid tariffs, an expensive, slow process. We had to find new suppliers overnight, says a furniture importer. Retaliatory tariffs from abroad slam American farmers and manufacturers. We lost half our overseas orders in a month, reports a soybean farmer. Export markets close, jobs are lost, and alliances fray. Our plant had to lay off 200 workers, says a union leader. Congress debates reclaiming its trade authority, but gridlock prevails. The president's emergency powers sideline lawmakers. Businesses, consumers, and Congress all look to the Supreme Court for answers. The outcome will shape the economy and the balance of power. The stakes are personal and national. Everyone waits for the court's ruling. I bet you didn't know just how much the Supreme Court's next move could change the way America does business with the world. Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. Will the Supreme Court's decision truly transform American trade, or is it just another chapter in a long-running political drama? The stakes are enormous, and the implications reach far beyond tariffs and trade wars. If the court upholds the lower ruling, it would mark a historic check on presidential power, one of the most significant in decades. This would send a clear message: the president cannot unilaterally reshape the nation's trade policy without congressional approval. In this scenario, future presidents would need Congress to impose broad tariffs, restoring a balance of power that many lawmakers and legal scholars argue has eroded over time. Congress would face mounting pressure to clarify trade laws and redefine the scope of emergency powers. Trade policy would likely shift back toward negotiation and diplomacy, rather than unilateral executive action. This could mean more stability for global markets but also slower responses to economic threats. But if the court sides with the administration, presidential power expands dramatically. Any president could use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to reshape trade policy, bypassing Congress entirely. This would fundamentally alter the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, with lasting consequences for how America engages with the world. Critics warn this could open the door to sweeping, unchecked actions by future presidents, regardless of party. There's also a third possibility. The court could take a narrow path, striking down these specific tariffs but leaving other presidential powers intact. This would offer a compromise, but might leave key questions about executive authority unresolved. Whatever the outcome, this is a constitutional crossroads for American trade policy. The decision will define the limits of executive authority for years to come. America's role in the global economy hangs in the balance. Will the U.S. lead through consensus and law, or through bold executive action? The world is watching, as the Supreme Court prepares to deliver a verdict that could reshape not just American trade, but the very nature of presidential power itself. Are you worried about how one Supreme Court decision could shake the entire world economy? Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. As the United States grapples with the Supreme Court's decision, the world watches closely. The ruling has sent ripples through international markets, causing a wave of reactions from global leaders and economic experts. GAP 3S. In Europe, officials express cautious optimism. A return to multilateralism could stabilize global trade, says an EU trade representative. Countries like Germany and France see potential for renewed negotiations and balanced trade agreements. However, there is also apprehension. Some fear that if presidential powers expand, it could lead to unpredictable trade policies, affecting long-term investments and economic stability. GAP 3S. Across the Pacific, China responds with a mix of caution and criticism. The uncertainty in U.S. trade policy is concerning, remarks a Chinese government spokesperson. China, being a major trading partner, is wary of abrupt policy shifts, but also recognizes an opportunity. If the U.S. limits executive power, China could strengthen its position in global trade negotiations, pushing for more favorable terms. GAP 3S. In emerging markets like India and Brazil, the decision is seen as a double-edged sword. On one hand, a check on U.S. executive power could lead to more predictable trade relations, boosting investor confidence. On the other, these economies worry about a potential surge in U.S. protectionism if presidential power is upheld, which could disrupt their own economic growth. GAP 3S. The World Trade Organization, WTO, also weighs in. A clear framework for U.S. trade policy is crucial for global economic stability, states a WTO official. The organization hopes the decision will lead to more transparent and fair trade practices, reducing the risk of trade wars. GAP 3S. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the Supreme Court's ruling is not just an American issue, it's a global turning point, influencing international relations, economic strategies, and the future of global trade. The world is not just watching, it's preparing for a new era in international commerce. GAP 3S. Will this ruling bring about a new era of cooperation, or will it deepen divides? Only time will tell, but the international response makes one thing certain: the stakes have never been higher. GAP 2S. The decision will echo through the corridors of power across the globe, shaping the future of trade and international relations for years to come. As the immediate reactions settle, attention turns to the long-term implications for U.S. economic policy. The Supreme Court's decision has set a precedent that will influence how future presidents, lawmakers, and businesses navigate the complex landscape of global trade. For policymakers, the ruling means that every new trade negotiation or tariff could come under closer scrutiny. Congress may find itself playing a more active role in shaping trade policy, leading to more debate, and possibly more gridlock over America's economic direction. For businesses, uncertainty remains. Companies will need to adapt to a potentially slower, more transparent process for trade decisions. This could mean more stability in the long run, but also the possibility of delays as new checks and balances are tested. For the average American, these changes may not be felt overnight, but the effects could ripple through the economy for years, impacting everything from the prices of everyday goods to job opportunities in export-driven industries. So, what should viewers watch for next? Keep an eye on upcoming trade negotiations. Will the U.S. pursue new deals with old allies or chart a more protectionist course? Watch how Congress responds. Will lawmakers seek to reclaim more power over trade, or will presidential authority remain strong? And finally, observe how American businesses respond. Will they shift supply chains, invest in new markets, or lobby for policy changes? One thing is certain, the story is far from over. The Supreme Court's ruling has opened a new chapter in American economic policy, and its impact will continue to unfold in the months and years ahead. Stay tuned.